The alarm screamed through the cockpit. Red lights flashed everywhere. Jake Morrison gripped the controls of his cargo ship with sweating hands. Something was very wrong. "Come on," he muttered, trying to restart the main engine. Nothing happened. The engine was dead. Completely dead. Jake had been flying cargo ships for 5 years. He knew every sound his ship made, every vibration, every warning signal. But he had never heard anything like this before. The whole power system was failing. Life support would be next. He looked at his navigation screen. The nearest human station was 3 days away. He would be dead in 6 hours without life support. His hands moved quickly across the controls, searching for any solution. Then he saw it on his scanner. A planet. It was close, maybe 2 hours away at his current speed. The navigation computer showed it as Vela 4. There was a red warning symbol next to the name. That meant the planet was restricted. Humans were not supposed to go there. Jake laughed, but there was no humor in it. He was going to die if he didn't land somewhere. A restricted planet was better than floating dead in space. He pointed his ship toward Vela 4 and hoped he would make it. The ship shook and groaned. More systems were failing. The temperature in the cockpit was dropping. Jake pulled his jacket tighter around himself. The planet grew larger in his window. It was beautiful, blue and green with white clouds. It looked almost like Earth. Jake checked his scanners. The atmosphere was breathable. That was good news. If he survived the landing, at least he could breathe. The ship entered the atmosphere. The whole vessel shook violently. Jake's teeth rattled. Warning alarms were going off everywhere. He ignored them. He needed to focus on landing. Through the window, he could see a forest below. The trees looked strange. They seemed to glow with a soft light. But Jake didn't have time to think about that. The ground was coming up fast. Too fast. He pulled back on the controls, trying to slow down. The ship responded, but barely. He was still going too fast. He aimed for a clearing between the trees. The ship hit the ground hard. Jake's head slammed forward. Pain exploded behind his eyes. The ship bounced once, twice, then slid across the ground. Trees and rocks scraped against the hull. The sound was terrible, like metal screaming. Finally, the ship stopped. Smoke filled the cockpit. Jake coughed and hit the emergency release on his harness. He needed to get out before something exploded. He stumbled to the exit hatch and pulled the manual release. The door hissed open. Fresh air rushed in. Jake took a deep breath and immediately started coughing. His chest hurt. His head hurt. Everything hurt. He half climbed, half fell out of the ship and onto the ground. The grass under his hands felt soft and cool. He lay there for a moment, just breathing. He was alive. He had actually survived. Jake tried to stand up, but his legs wouldn't work properly. He managed to get to his knees. That's when he noticed the forest around him. The trees really were glowing. They gave off a soft blue light that made everything look dreamlike. He heard a sound behind him and turned quickly. The movement made his head spin. When his vision cleared, he saw her. She was tall, much taller than any human woman. Her skin was a light blue color that seemed to shimmer. She had large eyes, bigger than human eyes, and they were watching him carefully. She wore a simple suit that looked like it was made from something that changed colors in the light. Jake tried to speak, but his voice came out as a croak. The woman moved closer slowly, like she didn't want to scare him. She said something in a language he didn't understand. Her voice was soft and musical. She knelt down next to him and looked at his head. Jake realized he was bleeding. He could feel blood running down the side of his face. The woman made a concerned sound and reached out. Jake flinched, but she moved so gently that he let her touch his head. She examined his wound carefully, then stood up and gestured for him to stay where he was. She pulled out a small device from her belt and spoke into it. Jake couldn't understand the words, but he heard the urgency in her voice. A few minutes later, 2 more women appeared from between the glowing trees. They looked similar to the first woman. Blue skin, large eyes, tall and graceful. They carried what looked like a medical kit. The first woman talked to the others quickly, pointing at Jake and his crashed ship. The other two moved to Jake's side and began examining him. Their hands moved with practiced efficiency. One of them pulled out something that looked like a small scanner and moved it over Jake's body. They talked among themselves in their musical language. Jake tried to stay calm. They seemed to be helping him, but he was on an unknown planet, surrounded by aliens. His training said he should be careful, but his body was too hurt to do anything except sit there and let them work. One of the women pulled out a small device and pressed it against his neck. Jake felt a sharp sting. Then warmth spread through his body. The pain in his head began to fade. Whatever they had given him, it was working fast. The first woman, the one who had found him, crouched down in front of him. She tapped her chest and said a word. Sira. Then she pointed at him with a questioning look. Jake understood. She was telling him her name. He tapped his own chest. Jake, he said. Sarah smiled. It was a nice smile, warm and friendly. She said his name carefully, testing the sound. Jake. Then she stood and offered him her hand. Jake took it and let her help him up. He was surprised at how strong she was. She supported most of his weight easily. The other two women packed up their medical equipment and moved to either side of him. Sira said something and gestured toward the forest. Jake understood. They were going to take him somewhere. He looked back at his ship. It was damaged beyond repair. Smoke was still coming from the engine. He had no choice but to go with them. They moved slowly through the glowing forest. Jake's legs were getting stronger with each step. Whatever medicine they had given him was powerful. The trees around them were beautiful and strange. Their trunks were smooth and seemed to pulse with gentle light. After about 20 minutes of walking, they came to a clearing. Jake stopped and stared. In front of him was a building, but unlike any building he had ever seen, it looked like it had grown from the ground naturally, all smooth curves and organic shapes. Parts of it glowed softly like the trees, but that wasn't what made Jake freeze. It was the women. There were others, at least a dozen of them, standing near the building or looking out of windows. All of them were watching him. All of them had the same blue skin, the same large eyes, the same tall, graceful bodies. All women, no men anywhere. Sarah touched his arm gently and gestured toward the entrance. Jake forced his feet to move. His heart was pounding. What kind of place was this? Where were all the men? They walked up to the entrance. The door opened silently. Sarah led him inside, the other two women following. The interior was warm and lit with the same soft glow as outside, and there were more women inside, many more. Jake stepped through the doorway into a large open room and froze completely. At least 20 alien women were there, all standing still, all staring directly at him. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. The silence was total. Jake's mind raced. What was happening? Why were they all looking at him like that? Their faces showed something he couldn't quite read. Not fear. Not anger. Something else. Something intense. Then one of them, an older woman with silver markings on her blue skin, stepped forward. The others moved aside to let her pass. She walked up to Jake slowly, her large eyes studying him carefully. She said something in their language, her voice filled with emotion Jake couldn't identify. Sarah responded, gesturing to Jake and speaking quickly. The older woman listened, then turned back to Jake. She reached out one hand and touched his face very gently, almost reverently. Her eyes were wide with something that looked like wonder. She turned to the other women and said something. Every woman in the room responded at once, their voices rising together in what sounded like surprise or excitement, or maybe both. Jake stood there, supported by Sira, surrounded by alien women, with no idea what he had just walked into. But he knew one thing for certain. His life had just changed in ways he couldn't begin to understand. The older woman with silver markings stepped back and clapped her hands twice. The other women immediately moved into action. Some brought chairs, Others brought what looked like food and water. Within minutes, Jake found himself sitting in a comfortable chair with a cup of cool water in his hands. Sarah sat down next to him. She pulled out a small device from her belt, about the size of a phone. She tapped it a few times, then held it between them. The device made a soft humming sound. "Can you understand me now?" The words came from the device, but they were in English. Perfect English. Jake nearly dropped his cup. Yes, I can understand you." Sarah smiled with relief. "Good. This is a translation device. It learns languages quickly. I have been listening to human broadcasts for many months. It has learned your language. You've been listening to us? To humans?" Jake asked. "Yes, we have been watching your species for a long time." Sarah gestured to the older woman with silver markings. "This is Elder Kira. She leads our community. She wants to speak with you." Elder Kira sat down across from Jake. She held her own translation device. When she spoke, her voice came through in English. "Welcome, Jake Morrison. I am sorry you crashed on our world. But I must tell you something. Your crash was not entirely an accident." Jake felt a chill run down his spine. "What do you mean? Your ship's engine failed naturally." "That was real. But when I saw your ship in trouble, I guided you here. I used our technology to help you land safely. I wanted to meet a human. I wanted to meet a man." "You wanted to meet a man?" Jake looked around the room at all the women watching him. "Where are your men? Where are the males of your species?" The room became very quiet. Elder Kira's expression turned sad. "We have no men. We have never had men. The Villani are all female. We have always been this way." Jake stared at her. "But how do you have children?" "We have advanced biology," Kira explained. "Our bodies can create children without males. It is complicated, but it works. It has worked for thousands of years." "Then why did you want to meet me?" Jake asked. Kira leaned forward. "Because we are dying, Jake Morrison. Slowly. Over many centuries, we are dying. Our population is getting smaller. Our children are fewer. Our people are becoming weaker. We don't know why." Jake felt a wave of sympathy. "I'm sorry. That's terrible. But I don't understand what I can do to help." "You can help us understand," Sarah said softly. "Jake, in all our exploration of the galaxy, we have found many intelligent species, dozens of them. But they are all like us, all female, or all one sex. We thought that was normal. We thought that was how intelligent life worked. Until we found Earth," Kira continued. 50 years ago, we found your planet. And we were shocked. Humans have two sexes, male and female, living together, working together, creating together. We had never seen anything like it." Jake's mind was spinning. "You've been watching us for 50 years?" "Yes," Kira said. "We have studied your broadcasts, your art, your literature, your history. We have watched how human men and women interact, how they form relationships, how they work together, how they create families. It fascinated us." Sarah's voice was filled with emotion. "You have something we have never had, Jake. You have partnership, balance, two different kinds of people working together, each bringing different strengths. Your species thrives because of this. You are strong because of this. We believe this is what we are missing," Kira said. "This balance, this partnership. We don't want to become like you. We are proud of who we are, but we think understanding your way of life might help us understand what element we lack. What is making us weak?" Jake set down his cup. His hands were shaking slightly. "So, you brought me here to study me? Like a lab animal?" "No," Sarah said quickly. "Not like that. We want to learn from you, yes. But we also want to help you. To be friends with your people." Kira stood up and walked to a window. She gestured for Jake to join her. He got up, his legs still a bit unsteady, and walked over. Outside the window, he could see more of the glowing forest and several more buildings. This is just one community, Kira said. There are thousands of communities like this across our world. Millions of Villani. And all of us are wondering if we have a future. When we discovered humans, we saw hope. But there's a problem, Sierra added, coming to stand on Jake's other side. The Galactic Council. Do you know about them? Jake shook his head. No. What's that? It is the government of this part of the galaxy, Kira explained. Many species belong to it. They make laws, keep peace, share knowledge. But humans are not part of it. The Council has kept your species isolated. Why? Jake asked. Because they think humans are dangerous, Sarah said quietly. They have watched your history, your wars, your violence, the way you have damaged your own planet. They think you are too primitive, too aggressive to join the galaxy. Jake felt anger rising in his chest. That's not fair. Yes, we've made mistakes, but we're trying to be better. We're learning. I know, Kira said gently. And that is why I wanted to meet you. The other species in the Council, they have never had males. They don't understand that human violence comes partly from your history of males and females not working together properly. They see your conflicts, but not your progress. We Villani understand something the Council doesn't, Sierra said. We see that your species is learning to balance your two sexes, learning to work together. And we see that this makes you stronger, not weaker. Kira turned to face Jake directly. We want to sponsor humanity to join the Galactic Council. We want to be friends with your species. But we need your help. What kind of help? Jake asked. We need you to go back to your people, Kira said. Tell them about us. Tell them that we want to make an alliance. Ask them to send ambassadors here. Men and women working together, showing the galaxy what partnership looks like. Jake's head was spinning. This was too much. I'm just a cargo pilot. I'm nobody important. Why would anyone listen to me? Because you have seen us, Sarah said simply. You have been here. You can tell them we are real, and that we are friendly. Sometimes, the most powerful messengers are ordinary people. Over the next several days, Jake stayed in Sarah's home. He met her family. Her sister Lyra, who worked with technology, and their cousin Mina, who was a teacher. There was also an elder named Zara, who reminded Jake of his grandmother back on Earth. They gave him a room with a comfortable bed and brought him food. The food was strange, but not bad. Some of it even tasted good. They treated his injuries until he was fully healed. The medicine they had was incredibly advanced. Within 3 days, all his pain was gone. But more than healing his body, they fed his mind with questions. They wanted to know everything about human life. What was it like to be a man? How did men and women communicate? What was romance? What was love? What was marriage? Jake found himself talking for hours, trying to explain things he had always taken for granted. He told them about his parents, who had been married for 30 years. He told them about his sister and her husband. He tried to explain dating, friendship, partnership. The Villani women listened to everything with intense focus. Sometimes they would talk among themselves in their own language, debating what he had said. Other times they would ask him to clarify something that confused them. One evening, Sarah took him to a large gathering. Hundreds of Villani women came to hear him speak. Jake was nervous. He had never spoken in front of so many people before, but they were so genuinely curious, so earnest in their desire to learn, that his nervousness faded. He told them stories from Earth. He told them about famous human couples who had changed history together, Marie and Pierre Curie, who discovered radium. He told them about teams of men and women who had built spaceships, written beautiful music, created amazing art. He tried to make them understand that human success came from cooperation. The Villani asked questions for hours. Some were simple. Some were complex. Some made Jake think about his own culture in new ways. Do human men and women think differently? One asked. Sometimes, Jake said. Not always, but sometimes. And that's good. Different perspectives help us solve problems better. Are human men stronger than human women? Another asked. Physically, usually yes. But women are often stronger in other ways. Better at reading emotions, better at multitasking. But these are just generalizations. Every person is different. Do men and women ever fight? Someone else asked. Jake laughed. All the time. But that's okay. Conflict isn't always bad. Sometimes it helps us understand each other better. Sometimes it pushes us to find better solutions. As the gathering ended, Elder Kira approached him. You have given us much to think about. Jake Morrison, I hope you will continue to teach us. I'll do my best, Jake said. But I'm learning a lot too. Your society is amazing. You've eliminated war. You take perfect care of your planet. You've achieved things we're still fighting over. Kira smiled sadly. But we are still dying. Our harmony has not saved us. Perhaps we need a little of your conflict. A little of your creative tension. That night, lying in his bed, Jake thought about everything he had learned. The Villani were an incredible species. They had built a peaceful, advanced civilization, but they were missing something essential, something they couldn't quite name, and humanity, chaotic and messy and still learning, had that element. Not because they were better, but because they were different. Because they had the challenge and gift of two sexes learning to work together. Jake finally understood why the Villani wanted to help humanity join the galaxy. It wasn't charity. It was hope. They hoped that by understanding humanity, they might save themselves. And maybe, just maybe, humanity could learn something from them too. Jake woke to soft music. It took him a moment to remember where he was. Not on his ship. Not on Earth. He was on Vela 4, in Sarah's home, surrounded by an alien species who had never seen a man before. He got out of bed and looked out the window. The sun was rising, turning the sky beautiful shades of purple and orange. The glowing trees looked even more magical in the dawn light. For a moment, Jake forgot about everything else and just enjoyed the view. There was a soft knock on his door. Jake? Are you awake? It was Sarah's voice. Yes, come in. Sarah entered carrying a tray with food. She had quickly learned what kinds of foods Jake could eat safely. I thought you might be hungry. We have a busy day planned. Jake took the tray gratefully. What are we doing today? I want to show you our city. The real city. Not just this community. And then Elder Kira wants to discuss your ship. My ship is broken beyond repair, Jake said between bites of something that tasted like bread. Sarah smiled mysteriously. Perhaps. Perhaps not. After breakfast, Sarah led Jake outside. Waiting for them was a vehicle that looked nothing like human cars. It was smooth and round, and it hovered a few feet above the ground. There were no wheels. This is our transport, Sarah explained as they climbed in. It uses magnetic fields to move. Very efficient and no pollution. As they traveled, Jake stared out the window in wonder. The landscape was beautiful. Rolling hills covered in the glowing trees, rivers that sparkled in the sunlight, and everywhere, buildings that looked like they were part of nature, rather than separate from it. They saw other Villani along the way. All women. All stopping to stare at Jake with wide eyes. Some waved. Some just watched in silence. Jake was starting to get used to being the center of attention. Does it bother you? Sarah asked. Everyone staring? A little, Jake admitted. But I understand why. I'm probably the first male they've ever seen in person. You are, Sarah confirmed. We have seen images of human men in broadcasts. But seeing you in reality is very different. You move differently than we do. Your voice is deeper, your shoulders are broader, even the way you think seems different. How can you tell how I think? The questions you ask. The way you solve problems. Yesterday, When Mina's door was stuck, you immediately used force to open it. She had been trying to find a technical solution, different approaches. Jake thought about that. Is one way better than the other? No, Sierra said. That's what fascinates us. Sometimes force is the answer. Sometimes technology is the answer. Having both options makes you more flexible. They arrived at the city center. Jake stepped out of the vehicle and gasped. The city was incredible. Tall buildings spiraled up into the sky like crystal trees. Bridges connected them at different levels, and Villani walked along them or flew between them using some kind of personal flying devices. Welcome to Central Vela, Sierra said proudly. Our largest city. 5 million people live here. Jake walked through the streets in amazement. Everything was clean and beautiful. There was no trash, no pollution, no ugly buildings. The air smelled like flowers. But despite the beauty, Jake noticed something. The city was quiet. There were no raised voices, no arguments, no loud laughter. Everyone moved calmly and spoke softly. They visited a school where Villani children were learning. The children were even more fascinated by Jake than the adults. They crowded around him, touching his hands and arms, amazed by how different he felt. Their teacher had to gently pull them back. Can you tell them something about Earth? The teacher asked, through her translation device. They have never heard a human voice in person. Jake knelt down so he was at the children's level. On Earth, we have schools like this too. Children learning and playing. But we have boys and girls together. Boys are like me, and girls are like you. We learn from each other. One child raised her hand. Do the boys and girls like each other? Jake smiled. Sometimes, they become best friends. Sometimes, when they grow up, they fall in love and start families together. The children whispered excitedly to each other. The concept clearly fascinated them. After the school, Sarah took Jake to a research center. Scientists were working on various projects, trying to understand why their species was declining. They showed Jake their data and asked his opinion, even though he was not a scientist. We have tried everything, one researcher explained. Better nutrition, medical treatments, environmental changes. But still, each generation is smaller than the last. Still, our children are born weaker. Jake looked at their genetic data, not understanding most of it, but something occurred to him. On Earth, genetic diversity is important. When a species only breeds within a small group, they become weaker over time. Is it possible that you need more genetic variety? The researchers looked at each other. But how? We are all the same species. We cannot change that. I don't know, Jake admitted. I'm not smart enough to figure this out. But maybe studying human genetics could give you ideas. Maybe understanding how two sexes create genetic diversity could help. The lead researcher, whose name was Vela, nodded slowly. You may be right. This is why we need to work with humanity. Not to change who we are, but to understand principles we have never encountered. That evening, back at Sarah's home, Jake sat with her family. Lyra, Sarah's sister, was showing him their technology. She was brilliant with machines and loved explaining how things worked. This is our power source, she said, holding up a small crystal. It captures energy from our sun and stores it. One crystal can power a home for a year. We could use that on Earth, Jake said. We still burn fossil fuels for a lot of our power. Yes. We have seen this in your broadcasts, Lyra said. It makes us sad. Your planet is beautiful, but you are hurting it. I know, Jake said quietly. A lot of us are trying to change that. But it's hard. We have different countries, different governments. They don't always agree. Mina, the teacher, joined them. Why not? Why don't you work together? It's complicated, Jake said. Different histories, different beliefs, different resources. Sometimes men and women argue too. Having two sexes doesn't automatically make everything easy. But you keep trying? Mina asked. We keep trying. Jake confirmed. Zara, the oldest member of the family, brought tea. She had been quiet most of the time, but now she spoke. Tell me about love, Jake Morrison. Real human love, between a man and a woman. We have tried to understand it from your stories, but I don't think we truly do. Jake thought carefully about how to explain. Love is complicated. It's different for everyone. But for me, I saw it with my parents. They chose each other, not because they were the same, but because they were different. They balanced each other. Balanced how? Zara asked. My father was impulsive and creative. He had big ideas and dreams. My mother was practical and careful. She thought about consequences. Together, they could dream big, but also make those dreams real. Apart, my father might have failed from being too reckless. My mother might never have tried anything new. So, love is practical? Sierra asked. No, not just practical, Jake said. It's also emotional. They enjoyed being together. They made each other laugh. They supported each other when things were hard. They chose each other every day. Even when it wasn't easy. The women were silent, absorbing this. Finally, Lyra spoke. We have deep friendships. We care for each other. But I don't think we have what you describe. We don't have that tension, that choice, that balance between opposites. Maybe that's okay, Jake said gently. Your society works differently. You have harmony in ways we don't. This works 17 U people. Ender 6, and that's 17 UP. But harmony is not enough, Zara said sadly. Harmony is not keeping us alive. The next day, Elder Kira took Jake to see his ship. He was shocked. The ship was in a huge facility, surrounded by Villani engineers. They had taken it apart and were studying every piece. I hope you don't mind, Kira said. We have learned much from your technology. It is less advanced than ours in some ways, but more creative in others. Your solutions are often messy but effective. Jake walked around his ship. It looked different now. The engineers had replaced damaged parts with Villani technology. The hull was being reinforced with their materials. We can repair your ship, Kira said. Better than repair. We can upgrade it. Make it faster, more efficient. When you return to human space, you will have proof of our technology. When I return, Jake asked. You must return, Kira said firmly. You must tell your people about us. Ask them to send ambassadors. This is how we begin building bridges. A young engineer named Nyla approached them. I have a question about your engine design. Why do you use this configuration? It seems inefficient. Jake laughed. Because it's cheap and we can fix it easily with basic tools. Efficiency isn't everything. Nyla looked confused. Why not? Because sometimes good enough is better than perfect. If something breaks in deep space, I can fix our design with spare parts. Could I fix yours? Neela considered this. No. Our designs require specialized tools, so in some situations, our primitive design is actually more practical, Jake said. Nyla's eyes widened. I had not considered this. Redundancy and repairability versus pure efficiency. This is the kind of thinking we need to learn. Over the following days, Jake found himself in a rhythm. Mornings with Sarah's family, learning about Villani culture. Afternoons working with the engineers on his ship, sharing human knowledge. Evenings with different groups, telling stories and answering questions. He learned that the Villani had no concept of romantic jealousy. They formed deep friendships, but not exclusive partnerships. They had no marriage, no dating, no courtship. Children were raised by the whole community. He also learned that they had achieved things humanity had only dreamed of. Perfect recycling systems. Disease elimination. Unlimited clean energy. Social equality and peace. But Jake also saw what they were missing. There was no creative conflict, no passionate debates, no wild innovation. Everything was harmonious and peaceful, and slowly dying. One night, Sitting with Sierra under the glowing trees, Jake spoke his thoughts. You know what I think your problem is? Tell me, Sierra said. You're too perfect. Too harmonious. You all think alike because you're all the same. You need difference. You need conflict. Not war, but creative tension. You need people who disagree and argue and push each other to think differently. Sarah was quiet for a long time. This is what the Council fears about humans. Your conflict. Your aggression. But conflict isn't always bad, Jake insisted. Yes, we've had terrible wars. But we've also had incredible breakthroughs because people disagreed and challenged each other. Progress requires tension. So you think we need some of your chaos? Sarah asked with a small smile. Maybe, Jake said. And maybe you can teach us some of your harmony. Maybe together, we can find a balance. Sarah looked up at the stars. I hope you are right, Jake Morrison. Because if you are, then maybe both our species have a future. Jake had been on Vela 4 for 3 weeks. His ship was nearly repaired, upgraded with technology that would amaze anyone back home. But more importantly, he had become friends with these alien women who had shown him nothing but kindness. One morning, Sierra woke him early. Elder Kira has called a formal assembly. She wants you there. Jake dressed quickly and followed Sarah to a large building he had not seen before. It was the council chamber, where important decisions were made. Inside, hundreds of Villani had gathered, not just from this community, but from all over the planet. Jake could see their faces on large screens, broadcast from other cities. Elder Kira stood at the center on a raised platform. When she saw Jake enter, she gestured for him to join her. Jake climbed up, feeling nervous with so many eyes on him. Sisters, Kira began. And her voice was amplified so everyone could hear. 3 weeks ago, this man crashed on our world. Jake Morrison, a human cargo pilot, an ordinary man by his people's standards. But his presence here has changed everything, the crowd murmured in agreement. Jake stood still, trying not to look as nervous as he felt. We have learned much from him, Kira continued. We have learned about human relationships, about partnership, about the balance of male and female. We have seen how having two sexes creates both conflict and creativity, and I believe we have found what we have been missing. A wave of excited whispers spread through the crowd. We are dying because we are too similar, Kira said bluntly. We think alike. We approach problems the same way. We have no creative tension, no opposing viewpoints to push us forward. We have achieved harmony, but harmony without growth is stagnation. An older Villani stood up. Are you saying we should change who we are? No, Kira said firmly. I am saying we should learn from another way of being. The Galactic Council has kept humanity isolated, believing they are too dangerous, but I believe they are exactly what the galaxy needs, and they are exactly what we need. Jake found his voice. What exactly are you proposing? Kira turned to him. Jake Morrison, we want to sponsor humanity's entry into the Galactic Council. We want to establish formal diplomatic relations. We want to learn from your people, and we hope to teach you as well. Another Villani spoke up. But the Council will never approve. They fear humans. They fear humans because they don't understand them, Sierra said, standing up. They see human violence, but not human compassion. They see conflict, but not cooperation. They need to see what Jake has shown us, men and women working together, each bringing different strengths. Kira nodded. This is why Jake must return to Earth. He must convince his leaders to send ambassadors here. Not just men or just women, but both. Working together. Showing the galaxy what true partnership looks like. Jake's heart was racing. You want me to be a diplomat? I'm just a cargo pilot. You are a bridge, Kira said gently. You have walked in our world, and we have walked in yours. Through your stories. You understand both sides now. Sometimes the best messengers are not the important people, but the honest ones. A younger Villani asked the question everyone was thinking. What if humanity refuses? What if they don't believe him? That is a risk, Kira admitted. But we must try. We can give Jake proof. His upgraded ship, recordings of our world, technology samples. His testimony. It will be enough to make them listen. Jake took a deep breath. The weight of what they were asking was enormous. If I do this, if I go back and convince Earth to send people here, what happens then? Then we present humanity to the Galactic Council together, Kira said. We sponsor you. We vouch for your peaceful intentions. We show them that humans are capable of the cooperation the galaxy needs. And if the Council still says no, Jake asked, then we stand with humanity anyway, Kira said. We need you too much to let politics stop us. Your people can teach us about balance, about creative conflict, about growth through difference. These lessons might save our species. The assembly talked for hours. Different Villani asked questions, voiced concerns, offered support. Jake answered as best he could, explaining what he knew about Earth's politics, about human nature, about the challenges they would face. Finally, the assembly voted. It was unanimous. The Villani would sponsor humanity's entry into the Galactic Council. After the assembly, Jake sat with Sarah on a balcony overlooking the city. The sun was setting, painting everything in golden light. Are you afraid? Sarah asked. Terrified, Jake admitted. What if I mess this up? What if I can't convince them? Then you tried, Sarah said simply. That is all anyone can ask. Why are you putting so much faith in humanity? Jake asked. You barely know us. Sarah was quiet for a moment. Because I have watched you. Jake. I have seen how you think. How you solve problems. How you care for others. You are not perfect. You have flaws and make mistakes. But you try. You keep trying even when things are hard. That is what we have lost. Too sad. What do you mean? We Villani have become too comfortable, Sarah explained. We don't struggle anymore. We don't have to fight for anything. And without struggle, without challenge, we have stopped growing. We are like plants in perfect conditions. Alive, but not thriving. You think humans can teach you to struggle? Jake asked with a slight smile. I think humans can teach us that struggle is not always bad, Sarah said. That conflict can lead to growth. That difference is not a weakness, but a strength. Over the next few days, Jake prepared for his departure. The engineers finished work on his ship. It looked the same on the outside. But inside, it was transformed. New engine, new computer systems, new everything. They estimated it would cut his travel time to human space by more than half. Lyra showed him how to use the new systems. It's mostly automated. The computer will handle most of it. But you should understand the basics, in case something goes wrong. Jake spent hours learning the new controls. It was both exciting and terrifying. This ship was more advanced than anything humans had built. Mina gave him a data crystal. This contains information about our culture, our history, our language. Give it to your people so they can learn about us. Zara gave him something more personal. A small pendant made of the same crystal material as their energy sources. To remember us, she said softly. To remember that friendship can cross any distance. The night before his departure, Kira brought him to a secure facility. There is something I need to show you, she said. Inside the facility, Jake saw something that made his blood run cold. It was a ship, but not a Villani ship. It was aggressive-looking. All sharp angles and weapons. This is a Krex warship, Kira explained. The Krex are one of the most powerful species in the Council. They believe in strength and domination. They are the main reason the Council fears humanity. Why? Jake asked. Because the Krex see themselves in you, Kira said. They were once like humans, aggressive, expansionist, violent, but they were all one sex, like us. They eventually evolved past their violent phase through strict control and discipline. They believe humanity will never evolve because your two sexes will always create conflict. But you don't believe that, Jake said. No, Kira said firmly. I believe your two sexes are your strength, not your weakness. But we must prove this to the Council. We must show them that human men and women can work together peacefully and productively. That's a lot of pressure, Jake said. I know, Kira said, but I believe in you. And more importantly, I believe in humanity's potential. The morning of departure came too quickly. Jake stood by his ship, saying goodbye to everyone he had met. The crowd was huge. It seemed like the whole community had come to see him off. Sierra walked him to the ship's ramp. I will miss you, Jake Morrison. I'll miss you too, Jake said, surprised by how much he meant it. Thank you for saving me. For teaching me. For believing in us. Come back, Sarah said. Come back with your people. Show us what humanity can do. Jake climbed into his ship and started the new engine. It purred to life smoothly, powerful but quiet. He checked all the systems. Everything was perfect. He took off slowly, watching through his window as Sierra and the others became smaller below him. The glowing forest, the beautiful buildings, the peaceful world where he had learned so much. As he left the atmosphere and set course for human space, Jake looked at the data crystal Mina had given him. Inside was the future. Proof of alien life. Evidence of advanced technology. An invitation to join the galaxy. But more than that, it was a responsibility. He had to convince Earth to send the right people. Men and women who could work together. People who would show the galaxy that humanity's two sexes were a gift, not a curse. Jake thought about his parents. About the couples he had mentioned to the Villani. About every human partnership that had achieved great things. That was what he needed to show them. That was the story he needed to tell. The ship's computer beeped, showing his estimated arrival time at the nearest human outpost. 2 weeks. 2 weeks to figure out what he was going to say. 2 weeks to prepare to change everything. Jake looked back one more time at Vela 4, now just a blue-green dot among the stars. Then he looked forward. Toward home. Toward Earth. Toward the future. Okay, he said to himself. Let's go change the galaxy. He pushed the throttle forward, and the ship jumped to faster-than-light speed. The stars stretched into lines of light, and Jake Morrison, ordinary cargo pilot, began his journey to become the bridge between two species and the gateway to the stars. The journey back to human space felt both too long and too short. Jake spent his time preparing what he would say, how he would explain everything, but every practice speech sounded ridiculous in his head. How do you tell people that aliens exist and they want to be friends? On day 12, his ship's sensors picked up a human outpost. It was a small station called Gateway 7, basically a rest stop for ships traveling the Outer Rim. Jake had been there before. He knew some of the people who worked there. As he approached, his communication system lit up. A voice came through, full of suspicion. Unknown vessel. Identify yourself immediately. Your ship design does not match any known human configuration. Jake smiled. Of course, his ship looked different now. The Villani upgrades had changed its appearance. This is Jake Morrison, cargo pilot. Registration number HC7744. I'm in my ship, the Lucky Star. It's been modified. There was a long pause. Jake Morrison? You were reported missing 3 weeks ago. Your transponder signal vanished. Reb loaded. 4022. I crashed, Jake said. But I'm okay. And I really need to talk to someone in authority. Like, really important authority. Another pause. Stand by. It took 2 hours of back and forth before they let him dock. When Jake finally opened his ship's door, he found himself facing 6 armed security officers. Easy, Jake said, raising his hands. I'm not a threat. You disappear for 3 weeks and come back in a ship that looks like nothing we've ever seen, the lead officer said. Her name was Officer Rita Cole. Can you blame us for being careful? No, Jake admitted. But I need to speak with the station commander. I have information about first contact with an alien species. Rita's expression changed from suspicious to shocked. You're serious? Completely serious. They took him to the station commander's office. Commander Nick Palmer was a no-nonsense man in his 50s who had seen everything space could throw at him. But nothing had prepared him for Jake's story. Jake talked for 2 hours straight. He showed them videos he had recorded on Vela 4. He showed them the data crystal. He demonstrated the Vellani pendant, which glowed softly when activated. He showed them his ship's upgraded engine. Palmer sat back in his chair, his face pale. This is real. This is actually real. It's real, Jake confirmed. And sir, they want to help us join the Galactic Council. But we need to move fast. They need us to send ambassadors. Us? Palmer said. You mean Earth? Yes, sir. They want a delegation, men and women working together. It's important that both are represented. Palmer stood up and paced. I need to contact Earth Command. This is way above my authority. He turned to Jake. You understand that if you're lying about this, it's a serious crime. I know, Jake said. But I'm not lying. Sir, the Vellani are peaceful. They're advanced beyond anything we can imagine. And they genuinely want to help us. Palmer made the call. Within hours, Jake found himself talking to officials on Earth through secure channels. He told his story again and again. Each time, the people listening seemed more amazed and more skeptical, but the evidence was undeniable. The Vellani technology in his ship, the videos of their cities, the data crystal with information humanity had never encountered before. After 3 days of intense questioning, Earth's colonial administration made a decision. They would send a delegation to Vela 4. They asked Jake to lead it. Me? Jake said in disbelief. Why me? The official on the screen, Director Amy Foster, explained. Because the Vellani know you. They trust you. And frankly, because you've proven you can handle first contact without starting a war. But I'm just a cargo pilot. You're the cargo pilot who made first contact with an advanced alien species and lived to tell about it, Foster said. That makes you the most qualified person we have. They asked Jake to help select the delegation. It needed to be balanced. Equal numbers of men and women. Scientists, diplomats, military advisors, cultural experts. 20 people total. Jake worked with Foster and her team. They chose carefully. Dr. Lisa Chen, a brilliant xenobiologist. Commander Ben Hayes, a military strategist known for his level head. Kate Rodriguez, a career diplomat who had negotiated peace between 2 warring colonies. Dr. Alex Turner, a physicist. Captain Emma Blake, a pilot. Professor Sam Walker, an anthropologist. The list went on. Each person was chosen not just for their skills, but for their ability to work with others. Jake insisted on interviewing each candidate personally. Why is gender balance so important? Commander Hayes asked during his interview. Jake thought about Sarah, about all the Vellani women who had studied human partnerships with such fascination. Because that's what makes us special to them. They're all one sex. They've never seen how men and women can work together, complement each other, achieve things neither could do alone. We need to show them our best example of that cooperation. Hayes nodded slowly. So, this isn't just about diplomacy. It's about representing what humanity can be. Exactly, Jake said. 2 weeks later, the delegation was ready. They boarded a convoy of ships. Jake's upgraded vessel leading the way, followed by 3 human diplomatic ships. Earth had spared no expense. These were the newest, best-equipped ships humanity had. As they prepared to depart, Kate Rodriguez pulled Jake aside. Terrified, Jake admitted. What if I've built this up too much? What if something goes wrong? Kate smiled. Then we handle it together. That's what teams are for. The journey to Vela 4 took a week with the combined fleet traveling at standard speeds. Jake used the time to prepare everyone. He told them everything about Vellani culture, their customs, their language, their beliefs. Remember, he said during one briefing, they're fascinated by us, But that doesn't mean we're superior. They've achieved things we haven't. Perfect environmental balance. No war, no poverty. We have as much to learn from them as they do from us. Dr. Chen raised her hand. What do they want from us? Really? Just to study us? They want to understand what they're missing, Jake explained. They believe that understanding our two-sex dynamic might help them solve their population decline. But more than that, I think they want friendship. They want to know they're not alone in facing their challenges. As they approached Vela 4, Jake felt his heart racing. He was bringing humans to this world. He was responsible for what happened next. His ship's communication system lit up. A familiar voice came through. Jake Morrison. Welcome back. Sarah? Jake felt a wave of relief wash over him. It's good to hear your voice. We have been waiting for you, Sarah said warmly. We see you brought others. I brought the best people Earth has to offer, Jake said. Are you ready for us? We have been ready for 50 years, Sarah replied. Come home, Jake. The ships landed in a large clearing near Central Vela. As the doors opened and humans began to emerge, Jake saw what he had seen 3 weeks earlier. Hundreds of Velani women, all watching with wide eyes and wonder. But this time, they weren't just looking at one man. They were seeing men and women together, walking side by side, talking to each other, working as a team. Elder Kira approached with Sira beside her. Jake introduced Kate Rodriguez, who had been designated as the official head of the delegation. Kate extended her hand. Elder Kira, on behalf of Earth and humanity, thank you for this opportunity. We come in peace and friendship. Kira shook her hand, her large eyes studying Kate with interest. You are a leader of your people? One of many, Kate said. We have many leaders, men and women both. We believe leadership should be shared. Fascinating, Kira murmured. She looked past Kate at the other humans. You brought equal numbers of males and females. Yes, Commander Hayes stepped forward. We wanted to show you how we work together, how we combine different strengths and perspectives. Over the next several days, the real work began. The humans were given quarters in various Velani homes. Jake made sure to separate them in mixed groups. Always men and women together in each location. Dr. Chen and Dr. Turner worked with Velani scientists, sharing knowledge about genetics and biology. The Velani were amazed by human reproductive science. The humans were equally amazed by Velani biological engineering. Kate and Commander Hayes met with Velani leaders, discussing the Galactic Council and what humanity would need to do to join. The political situation was complex, but the Velani were patient teachers. Professor Walker and Emma Blake spent time with ordinary Velani, learning about their daily life, their culture, their hopes and fears. They recorded everything, building a database of knowledge for Earth, but the most important moments happened in the small interactions. When Velani women watched Commander Hayes and Dr. Chen debate a point, neither giving ground, until they found a solution together. When they saw Kate and Sam laugh together over a shared joke. When they observed how human men and women naturally fell into partnership without thinking about it. One evening, Jake sat with Sira on the same balcony where they had talked before his departure. It's working, Sira said softly. They're seeing what I saw in you. The balance. The creativity that comes from difference. They're good people, Jake said. All of them. I made sure of that. You chose well, Sarah agreed. Elder Kira is preparing to present humanity to the Galactic Council. She believes the Council will have to approve our sponsorship when they see how your people work together. What if the Council says no? Jake asked. Sira was quiet for a moment. Then we find another way. Jake, you've given us hope. Hope that our problem can be solved. That our species can survive. We won't abandon humanity now. 2 weeks into the visit, a Galactic Council ship arrived in orbit. The Krex had sent observers. Jake felt his stomach twist with anxiety when he heard this. They're testing us, Kate said during an emergency meeting. They want to see if we'll panic or fight. Then we show them we won't. Hayes said calmly. We continue as planned. Professional, peaceful, cooperative. The Krex representatives came down to the surface. They were tall and imposing, with gray skin and sharp features. Their leader, Commander Krell, looked at the humans with obvious disdain. So these are the humans, Krell said through a translator. The violent species that destroys its own planet. Before Jake could respond, Kate stepped forward. Yes, we have made mistakes. We have fought wars. We have damaged our environment. But we're learning. We're changing. Isn't that what evolution is? Krell studied her. The Krex once fought wars too. But we evolved beyond such behavior. Your species has two sexes constantly in conflict. You will never evolve. Commander Hayes spoke up. Our two sexes aren't in conflict. They're in partnership. That's the point you're missing. Partnership? Krell said skeptically. Dr. Chen stepped forward. Commander, look at our delegation. Look at how we work. Dr. Turner and I have been collaborating with Villani scientists. We approach problems differently, but that gives us more solutions. We challenge each other, but that makes our work stronger. Conflict makes you weaker. Krell insisted. Creative conflict makes us stronger, Emma Blake said. It's the difference between fighting and debating, between war and discussion. Well, Krell watched them for a long moment. Then he said something that surprised everyone. Prove it. We will observe you for 1 week. Show us this partnership you speak of. Over the next week, the humans worked knowing they were being watched. They didn't change their behavior. They continued to work together naturally, men and women collaborating on projects, debating ideas, solving problems together. The turning point came when a crisis occurred. A Villani power station began to malfunction. If it failed completely, it could damage the local ecosystem. The Villani engineers were struggling to fix it. Dr. Turner and Dr. Chen rushed to help. They had different ideas about the solution. Turner wanted to shut down the system and rebuild. Chen wanted to repair it while it was running. The Krex observers watched as the two humans argued passionately. It looked like conflict. But then something happened. They stopped arguing and listened to each other. Turner saw merit in Chen's approach. Chen saw wisdom in Turner's caution. Together, they developed a third solution that combined both ideas. It worked. The power station was saved. Commander Krell approached Jake afterward. That was not conflict. That was collaboration disguised as conflict. That's exactly what it was, Jake said. That's what human partnership looks like. We disagree. We debate. We challenge each other. And then we find better solutions together. Krell was silent for a long time. Perhaps we have been wrong about your species. Perhaps your two sexes are not a weakness. When the week ended, Krell sent a message to the Galactic Council. He recommended that the Council accept the Villani sponsorship of humanity. Not everyone on the Council agreed, but it was enough. Humanity was officially invited to join the Galactic Council. The celebration that night was incredible. Villani and humans together, sharing food and stories, learning about each other, building friendships that would last lifetimes. Jake stood apart from the crowd for a moment, just watching. Kate found him there. What are you thinking? She asked. That I was just trying to survive a crash, Jake said with a laugh. And somehow I ended up here, opening the door to the galaxy for our entire species. You did more than that, Kate said. You showed them what humanity can be. Not perfect, but trying. Not without conflict, but working together despite it. That's the real gift you gave. Jake looked at the crowd. He saw Dr. Chen talking animatedly with a Villani scientist. He saw Commander Hayes and Sarah discussing military philosophy. He saw humans and Villani laughing together, learning together, building something new together. And he thought about that moment weeks ago, when he had frozen in the doorway of Syrah's home, surrounded by alien women staring at him with wonder. He had been afraid then, uncertain, confused. Now he understood. Their wonder wasn't about him being male. It was about what he represented. The possibility of difference creating strength, the hope that two unlike things can make something greater together. Humans had that. Not because they were better, but because they had learned to work with difference rather than against it. And now they had a chance to share that lesson with the galaxy. Jake looked up at the stars. Somewhere out there were dozens of species, all waiting to see what humans would do next. Some were hopeful. Some were skeptical. Some were afraid. But Jake wasn't afraid anymore, because he wasn't alone. None of them were alone. Humans and Villani, men and women, different species and different sexes, all working together toward a shared future. The galaxy was about to learn what humanity had always known. That strength doesn't come from being the same. It comes from being different and choosing to work together anyway. And that, Jake thought, was a lesson worth sharing with the stars.